On a cold, stormy night, a billionaire was driving through the city when something caught her eye. A tiny, soaked 9-year-old girl standing alone in the middle of the road, desperately selling wilted flowers. Most people would have driven right past her, but she stopped. What this little girl revealed next shook the billionaire to her core. A secret no one saw coming. A story of loss, courage, and an impossible choice. You won't believe what happened next. Stay with us until the very end, because this is not just a story about flowers in the rain. It's about the kind of kindness that changes lives forever. Stop the car. Please, stop the car. The words left Eleanor Marchand's mouth before she even realized she'd spoken them. Her driver's hands tightened on the wheel, glancing at her through the rearview mirror, puzzled. Rain hammered against the roof of the black sedan, drumming like impatient fingers. Outside, the city blurred into a watercolor of slick streets, flickering neon signs and bent umbrellas wrestling against the wind. "What is it, ma'am?" the driver asked. Eleanor didn't answer. Her gaze was locked on something, no, someone, at the corner of the street. A little girl called Kate, no more than 9, stood ankle-deep in dirty rainwater. Her yellow raincoat was plastered to her tiny frame, the hood sagging over her face. But her hands. Her hands clutched a bouquet of roses so tightly that her knuckles had gone pale. The flowers were wilted, their petals bruised from the storm, but she held them with the care one would give to a newborn. Cars rushed past, sending sheets of water splashing against her legs. She didn't flinch. She stepped forward at each red light, her small face lifting toward drivers, lips moving. An offer, a question, perhaps a plea. Most turned away without a word. Eleanor felt something twist deep in her chest. There was a determination in Kate's posture, a stubborn stillness, as if the rain itself had no power over her. She leaned forward. "Pull over, now!" The driver hesitated, but the tone in her voice left no room for negotiation. The car eased toward the curb, tires hissing against the flooded road. Eleanor's hand was already on the door handle, her pulse quickening. She didn't know why she felt the urgency, only that she had to speak to that child. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the reason this little Kate stood in the middle of a storm, selling battered roses to strangers, was about to drag Eleanor into a truth she had spent her entire life avoiding. As Eleanor opened the car door, Kate moved so quickly it startled her, splashing through a shallow puddle, clutching her bundle of roses tight against her chest. "Ma'am, ma'am, please look!" The little voice was bright and urgent, cutting through the sound of the rain. She held out the bouquet as if it were a treasure, her small hands trembling from the cold. "Fresh roses, the prettiest you'll find all day." Eleanor's eyes softened. The blooms were far from fresh, their edges browned, petals drooping under the relentless downpour. But Kate's face lit up with such conviction that, for a moment, they almost looked beautiful. "See?" The child tilted the flowers toward her, brushing away raindrops with quick fingers. "They smell like sunshine. You can put them in your living room, and it will feel like spring, even in this weather." The words were rehearsed, Eleanor could tell, but there was something in the way she said them, an almost desperate need to make her believe. "How much?" Eleanor asked. 50, Kate replied quickly, as though afraid Eleanor might walk away before she finished speaking. Eleanor reached into her bag, pulling out a crisp $100 bill. "Here," she said gently. "Keep the change." But Kate stepped back, shaking her head, her chin lifting with quiet pride. "No, ma'am, I can't. 50 is the price. If I take more than that for these flowers, it's stealing, and I don't steal." Eleanor stood there, stunned by the words. The rain ran down her face, but the chill she felt wasn't from the weather. "Why are you out here in this storm?" she asked softly. Kate glanced over her shoulder, eyes flickering with something Eleanor couldn't quite read. Fear, maybe, or urgency. "Because flowers don't wait for sunny days." Before Eleanor could respond, the light changed, and Kate darted away toward another car, her small figure framed in the blur of rain and headlights. Eleanor watched her go, her heart heavy with a sudden, unshakable need to know more. Eleanor hesitated only a second before slipping back into the car. "Follow her," she told the driver, "but slowly. I don't want her to know." The sedan eased forward, its wipers slicing through the rain. Kate moved quickly, weaving between puddles and parked cars, her yellow raincoat a small beacon against the gray streets. They trailed her through two intersections, past shuttered shops and flickering street lamps, until she finally turned down a narrow alley. The driver glanced at Eleanor. "You want me to keep going in there?" "Yes," Eleanor said firmly. The alley was dim, sheltered slightly from the storm, though rainwater still streamed along its cracked pavement. Kate slowed now, glancing over her shoulder before disappearing behind a rusted dumpster. Eleanor's heart quickened. She stepped out of the car, ignoring the water seeping into her shoes, and moved quietly toward the spot where Kate had vanished. What she saw made her stop in her tracks. There, under the fragile cover of a tattered blue tarp, sat an old man in a wheelchair. His thin hands rested on a worn wool blanket, and his face was pale, his eyes closed as if asleep. Kate knelt beside him, speaking softly, her soaked hair plastered to her cheeks. She pulled a small tin can from under the tarp and dropped the crumpled bills she had earned into it. Then, one by one, she laid the roses across his lap, arranging them with the same careful precision Eleanor had seen on the street. When the man stirred and opened his eyes, they lit up with recognition, not for the flowers, but for her. "You did well," he whispered. Kate smiled, and for a moment the storm outside didn't seem to touch them. Eleanor stood frozen in the shadows, her breath caught. She had thought Kate was selling flowers to survive. But this wasn't just survival, it was something deeper, something that felt like love wrapped in sacrifice. Eleanor stayed still, half hidden behind the dumpster, her mind racing. Kate reached into a small paper bag and pulled out a folded piece of bread, handing it to the old man as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "You need to eat before you get cold again," she said, her voice gentle but firm. The man gave a tired smile and took a small bite. His hands trembled as he held the bread. "And the flowers?" he asked. Kate's face brightened. "I sold almost all of them. These are for tomorrow." She glanced at the wilted bouquet resting on his lap. "The lady I saw today, I think she liked them." The old man's eyes softened. "Your mama would have liked that too." "Ah!" Eleanor's breath caught. "Mama?" Kate nodded. "I know. That's why I always try to sell them on this street. It's the street where she used to work before she—" Her voice trailed off, but Eleanor could hear the weight in her silence. The man's gaze lowered, his fingers brushing a petal as if it were something sacred. "She always said flowers, spoke when words couldn't. That's why we keep doing this. Every rose we sell, every smile it brings, it's like she's still here." Eleanor felt her chest tighten. She could see it now, the stubbornness in Kate's eyes, the pride in her refusal to take more than what was owed. She wasn't just selling flowers, she was protecting a memory. A wave of rain-scented wind swept through the alley, tugging at Eleanor's coat. She wanted to step forward, to say something, to do something, but something inside told her this moment wasn't hers to interrupt. She turned and walked slowly back to the car, her mind swirling with questions. One thing was certain, she couldn't just leave it here. This wasn't the end of their story, it was the beginning. She turned and walked slowly back to the car, her mind full of questions. One thing was clear, she couldn't just leave them like this. This was not the end of their story, it was only the beginning. The next day, in the evening, Eleanor came back. The sky was darkening, and the streetlights made the wet pavement shine. She carried a small paper bag with fresh bread, warm soup, and some sweets. She quietly walked toward the small wooden stall where Kate and the old man stayed. Just as she was about to knock, she stopped. She could hear their voices clearly. Kate said softly, "I didn't sell anything today. The flowers got spoiled from yesterday's rain." She sighed and added, "I wish Mama was here. Things are so hard now. Grandpa is very sick, and I can't afford to buy his medicine." The old man replied with a tired voice, "We are doing the best we can, my child." Then the old man said slowly, "I can never forgive the owners of the Winston Textile Factory. Everything changed after the fire at the Winston Textile Factory. That night we lost so much, your mother and her husband too." Eleanor felt her heart drop. The Winston Textile Factory. She knew that factory well. It was once owned by her company. She remembered the reports about broken wires, unsafe exits, warnings she had seen but ignored. Kate spoke again. "Mama used to bring me roses from the garden behind the factory. She said the flowers made her feel safe. even when the machines were loud. Eleanor's hands tightened around the paper bag. This wasn't just a sad story, it was connected to her own choices, and it changed everything. She stepped back into the shadows, her mind racing. She had come to help with food. Now she wasn't sure if she had the right to even face them. The shame and guilt drove her to walk away holding the foodstuff she was carrying. The next morning, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from her. Her mind was filled with the little Kate's words and the old man's story. She realized this was bigger than just flowers or charity. It was about righting a wrong she had helped cause. That day, Eleanor made a decision. She found Kate again at the same street corner, holding her wilted flowers. "I want to buy all your flowers," Eleanor said gently. Kate looked surprised. "All of them?" "Yes, and I want to help you and your grandfather. You don't have to sell flowers in the rain anymore." Kate's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you help us?" Lenore smiled softly, trying to hold back her own tears. Her throat felt tight, as if the weight of years of silence and regret was pressing down on her. Kate's hopeful eyes shone up at her, and for a moment, Eleanor saw not just a child struggling to survive, but a spark of resilience, a fragile promise of a better future. "Because sometimes we all need a little help," Eleanor whispered, voice barely steady. "And because I want to make things right." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, careful but deliberate, and held it out to Kate. The flickering streetlight caught the edges of the bills inside, enough money to cover medicine, food and more. But Kate's face hardened. She shook her head firmly. "No ma'am, I can't take this." Eleanor blinked, surprised. "Money doesn't fix lies," Kate said quietly, folding her hands over the envelope. "It can't bring Mama back. It can't make the fire go away, and it can't wash away what happened." At that moment, Eleanor's driver stepped forward from the shadows. His voice was low but urgent. "Ma'am, you need to be careful. If this gets out, the fire, the factory, the family, it could cause serious legal trouble. You could lose everything you've built." Eleanor's heart raced. The truth was a ticking bomb. She could protect herself by walking away, by ignoring the past, and letting this family fade into the shadows. But every instinct screamed at her to do the opposite. She stood frozen between two impossible choices: preserve her reputation and wealth, or face the consequences and help make things right, no matter the cost. The rain began again, soft at first, then stronger, as if the sky itself was waiting for her decision. Eleanor's gaze dropped to the rain-soaked street. The soft patter of droplets echoed the storm raging inside her. Every part of her wanted to turn away, to protect the empire she had built, the name she had crafted with years of careful work. But the faces before her, Kate and her grandfather, pulled at something deeper, something she could no longer ignore. She thought of the factory, the warnings she'd dismissed, the choices made in cold boardrooms that had doomed this family. The driver's warning echoed in her mind, a reminder of the risks. Yet the pain in Kate's eyes was a louder call. Eleanor took a slow, steadying breath. "I can't promise it will be easy," she said softly, "and I might lose a lot, but some things are more important than reputation." She looked back at Kate, determination shining through the fatigue in her own eyes. "Let me help, truly help. No secrets, no lies." Kate studied her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. As the rain fell harder, Eleanor felt a strange kind of relief wash over her, as if finally stepping into the storm was the only way to cleanse the past. In the days that followed, Eleanor moved carefully. She arranged for Kate and her grandfather to have a small, warm apartment, safe from rain and cold. She ensured the old man received proper medical care, his medicines delivered on time. But Eleanor did all this quietly, away from the public eye. She avoided headlines, press releases, and any sign that she was involved. Still, Kate refused any money that felt like charity. Instead, Eleanor helped them find small jobs and opportunities that preserved their dignity. Slowly, hope began to bloom in their lives. Kate returned to school, her smile growing brighter with each day. The old man's health improved, and he often spoke of the roses his daughter loved. For Eleanor, it was more than just an act of kindness. It was a chance to atone, to turn her regrets into something meaningful. But deep down, she knew the past was never far behind. The truth about the factory fire lingered like a shadow, waiting for the right moment to rise again. And when it did, everything their fragile new beginning would be put to the ultimate test. Weeks later, just as spring began to breathe new life into the city, the past came roaring back like a storm. A local journalist, chasing a tip about workplace safety scandals, uncovered documents linking the Winston textile factory fire to the company Eleanor once led. The story quickly gained traction, stirring public outrage. One afternoon, Eleanor received an urgent call. The reporter wanted an interview, and he knew about the little Kate selling flowers and the old man in the alley. The walls Eleanor had built to protect herself started to crumble. The truth she tried to bury was now front-page news. At the same time, Kate's fragile world threatened to shatter. Whispers in the neighborhood grew louder. People who once showed sympathy began to stare and judge. Eleanor faced a terrible choice: continue hiding, protecting her reputation, or step forward and accept responsibility, risking everything but finally doing what was right. In a moment that would define her, Eleanor chose courage over comfort. She held a press conference, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I stand before you not just as a businesswoman, but as someone who failed to act when it mattered most," she said. The fire at Winston Textile was a tragedy that changed lives forever, including the life of a brave little Kate and her grandfather, who have touched my heart deeply. Eleanor promised to take full responsibility, fund support programs for victims' families, and push for stronger safety laws. Her confession shocked many, but it also sparked something unexpected: hope. The girl watched from the crowd, her eyes wide but filled with cautious trust. But inside, her heart burned with rage. She didn't want to see Eleanor again, the woman whose company's decisions had caused the fire that took her parents. That night, she and her grandfather returned to their old broken-down home. Days later, Eleanor stood trembling at the doorstep, tears streaming down her face. She fell to her knees in the muddy yard, her voice breaking. "Please, please forgive me." The door slammed open and the girl stormed out, her eyes blazing. "Forgive you?" she spat, voice sharp and cold. "You think a sorry is enough? You think your money or tears can fix what you destroyed? My parents are dead because of you." Eleanor flinched but kept her voice steady. "I know I can never bring them back. I was wrong. I want to make things right, if you'll let me." The girl stepped closer, her fists clenched. "Make things right? You don't even know what that means. You're a liar hiding behind your power and your lies." Her words cut deep, but Eleanor nodded. "I deserve every word. I'm ready to face whatever it takes." The girl's voice cracked, a flicker of pain breaking through the fury. "You don't get to come into our lives and fix it with pity. I hate you." Eleanor's tears flowed freely now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me now. But please don't shut me out forever." For a long moment, the girl looked away, trembling with anger and grief. Her grandfather stepped forward, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting, child. It's the hardest path, but it can heal the heart." Finally, the girl took a shaky breath and met Eleanor's eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive you completely," she said quietly, "but maybe I can start." Eleanor reached out her hand, and the girl hesitated, then took it. In that fragile touch was a glimmer of hope, a chance for healing amid the pain. After that night, the girl kept her distance, her trust not easily won, but Eleanor did not give up. She visited often, sometimes just sitting quietly nearby, sometimes bringing small gifts or warm food. She never pushed or demanded forgiveness. Instead, she showed up, day after day, proving with actions what words couldn't yet express. Slowly, the girl's walls began to soften. She started to ask questions, to listen, even to smile, just a little. Eleanor arranged for the grandfather's medicine to be delivered regularly, making sure no more nights were spent worrying about his health. She helped the girl return to school, buying her books and uniforms, and quietly supporting her education. Though scars remained, hope started to bloom in their hearts. One afternoon, the girl invited Eleanor inside the small home, a tentative step that meant the world. "I don't know what the future holds," she said honestly, "but maybe it won't be so dark." Eleanor nodded, tears in her eyes. "We'll face it together." And together they began to rebuild. Not just a home, but trust, healing, and a new chance at life. Eleanor's quiet kindness soon blossomed into something bigger. With her help, the girl and her grandfather opened a small flower shop, a place filled with fresh blooms, warm sunlight, and the promise of new beginnings. The old man, now healthier and stronger thanks to the medicine and care Eleanor arranged, took joy in arranging bouquets once more, his hands steady as he worked. The girl Kate returned to school, her days filled with learning and laughter instead of fear and hunger. Their flower shop became a symbol of hope, proof that even the darkest past can grow into something beautiful. And Eleanor, once weighed down by guilt and regret, found healing in watching their lives flourish. Together they showed that kindness, courage, and second chances can truly change everything.